Now we wrap up the paragraph about action and faith in here in the middle of the second chapter of James with the question of what does this situation about the faith with the person who is cold and hungry, what does that teach us about what faith really is? So we look at the verse. Today's verse is James 2:17. In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. There's been a lot of explaining away about that verse. There are those who have even tried to take the entire book of James out of the canon of Scripture because it appeared to them that James was teaching salvation by works when Paul so clearly teaches salvation by grace through faith. Is that what's happening here? Is this about faith versus works? And no, it's not. So let's look at the whole thing in its context here. We go back to verse 14 and read the whole thing here. What good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? Suppose a brother is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to him, "Go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. Now we've covered the verse previously. What good is it if a man claims to have faith, this so-called faith? So-called faith. But that's the previous lesson. We've looked at the situation. You're faced with a brother, somebody that you have an obligation to is right in front of you, and you have a need that you can fill. And we've looked at what does it really mean about you if you do nothing but words. Now he says, in the same way. And this is the key to the whole understanding. In the same way. So many verses are tied together with therefores. Therefore, therefore, therefore. But this one is tied together in the same way. Not therefore faith without works, but in the same way. Well, in the same way as what? In the same way as it is just futile, fraudulent stupidity to say, "Oh, be warmed and fed," when you could do something about it. The person who goes around saying, "Oh, be warmed and fed," what do we call him? The one who could do something, but just says, "Oh, be warmed and fed. I wish you well." Who says, "I'll pray for you," when he has an extra coat. He has the extra food. I know somebody's going to say, "We can't feed and clothe the whole world." It's not talking about feeding and clothing the whole world. It says your brother, somebody who's right there in front of you, somebody who God has put in your path. God did not put it in your responsibility to feed the whole world. Let's settle that right now. You know that, I know that, we all know that. God did not give you that responsibility. But when somebody is standing right in front of you, that can tell you that God has given you the responsibility because He put this person in your path. Now, you're faced with that, and the person who is faced with that and just says, "Oh, I'll pray for you. Be warmed and fed. May God bless you." What do we call that person? We call them a fake. We call them a phony. Phony charity. Phony caring. They don't really care. They're just saying it. Now, in the same way, what does it mean? Well, to answer the question, what's the question? What good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have? He's acting that he has. He's portraying to the world that he has. Well, what's the difference between that and the person who's portraying to the people around that he cares about the man without clothes? He's portraying it by saying, may you find clothes. May you be warm. Like the man who says, I have faith. I believe all the right things. I believed 47 years ago. I can tell you the exact moment, and if you can't tell me the exact moment, maybe you didn't ever really believe. You know? So, in the same way, you have the food, you don't share it. What is it? It's fake. It's not real. In the same way, faith by itself. He's not saying real faith, really the faith that we talk about everywhere else. We talk about faith, but that real faith, if it doesn't have works, is somehow dead. No, not talking about that. He's saying faith, let's put the quotation marks around it, faith, that it's by itself, believing by itself. I believe, we're going to see what the devils believe a little in the next paragraph. And we're going to see what the result of what the devils believe, you know. I believe that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And, okay, I believe this historical fact. And faith, just the intellectual knowledge, intellectual assent, he's saying, by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. In the same way that this so-called caring of this person who said be warmed and fed is dead. It's useless. It's phony. It's fake. Now, he is not saying that you have to first have faith and then that produces actions and the actions save you. No. What he's saying is, if it's, and we'll see this as we develop this in the later next 2 paragraphs, if it is really faith, if it is really saving faith, it will be accompanied by action. He's saying when you see it without action, just as when you see the man say, be warmed and fed, and he does nothing, you know he's a fraud. When you see the person who says, I have faith, and there is no act of faith in their life, it's dead. Many will say to me, Lord, Lord. With the answer, I never knew you.